your particular businesses. You're welcome. It gives you maybe a little idea of what's out there and kind of what's going on in your world. Just identifying, if you look at page 2, there is a common-sized profit and loss or income statement, the terminology they're using, and balance sheet. So it gives you some idea of the cost of goods sold and the contribution margin in your industry right now. So it gives, that's, and I was a little surprised about this one, truthfully. Your margins, that's a little tough, truthfully, to make a lot of money on when you have that high of cost of goods. Look at their net income before taxes is running about that. It's not very high from an industry standpoint. There's the ratios too. You can look at this and it helps you show trends too, because it shows this all years, the last 5 years, how it looks. And then the last 12 months, because there has been a lot of seasonality in our economic development and in businesses and how that's trending. And this also gives you the same thing, but yours has not varied very much. And even your profitability, although it is, better, and it's certainly, it's getting better. But anyway, some other things is, the industry has seen some growth, a 10% growth in the last 12 months. That kind of gives you and profit growth, that's what it's showing. It's telling you, I think these are always interesting. Sales per employee numbers, it's kind of gives you just a ratio to kind of consider to check, because these are all percentages. There's nothing here on a dollar basis, so that just kind of gives you an idea. Now, I pulled this is motorcycle, ATV, and other motor vehicle dealers. There was one that had boats. You don't have boats. Okay, that was a different industry code. I didn't think so. So this is probably the closest thing that I can find that matches kind of where you are. It gives you an idea. You're welcome. Okay, welcome back. This is berries.
Okay.
And you can pull it by different.
That's fine.
Berries is one I thought you might find interesting.
Yeah, a lot of that.
I knew you did a lot of that.
Appreciate it.
Sure. And so that gives you an idea. For instance, it's saying here that your cost of goods is about 32%, which means you have a margin of about 67. So these are all what we're talking about, your direct cost, your seeds and your fertilizer and all that jazz. It just gives you an idea.
Yeah, that's great.
Of common sizing, for your particular business.
I appreciate that.
Sure.
Very kind.
Anyway, I like to see that. It doesn't make your numbers right or wrong, in fact, but it just gives you an idea of maybe what's going on in your particular industry and what your comparables are for your particular industry. So picking up from last week, we're going to jump back into using all of our information now that we gathered for 2 weeks. And today we're going to spend most of our time on figuring out a cash budget. In other words, figuring out some ways to use what we know about our particular business and using that to formulate a plan for the future. And we're going to use a lot of the things that we've already learned about this particular business, and we're going to incorporate it into our cash plan. I'm going to try not to make this a math class, and that's because that is not the intention. So, in your folders, and everybody has their folders, right? Yeah, let me borrow one too, so I can kind of figure out where we are. you have, again, a very thick seminar workbook today because we're going to do some actual cash budgeting, and you have some templates in there. I'm going to let you decide how you want to do it. My slides are going to walk us through a lot of this, and so you can either copy it down, or I'm also going to give you the answer sheet that looks like this. You're going to have a blank one of these in your workbook, but I'm going to give you this too because I don't want us to spend our time just writing down numbers in a worksheet. I want to spend our time really analyzing what the numbers mean. So we're going to start out basically by talking through sales planning, and then we'll start doing this part. And you can see what you want to do personally. I'll show you what I'm talking about when we get there. But I have all the numbers right here, which I guess I call the answer sheet or the budget that we prepared, because we're going to use that information to actually help direct Computer Solutions Incorporated on some key decisions regarding their budget. Okay, you know me by now. So that's what we're going to do today. We're actually, in the financial management cycle, we're going to do the last stage of it. We're going to use our past performance and our analysis now to try to predict the future. And they say it is a vicious cycle, and it's true because it's constant, it's ongoing. There's always, new revenue occurring, new expenses, and we're always trying to figure out, how much cash we need and what's going on for next month or next year. So here's our objectives today. Really, our objectives are about relating to making better decisions. And that's what a cash budget hopefully will do for you. Can you support future growth plans? You guys described taking on a whole nother line of lawnmowers. That's what cash budgeting can help do, figuring out if you had, if we took on another line and we invested this and we had this much in sales, what kind of revenue or what kind of cash need would that mean to us? That's what cash budgeting does. Are we going to need some more money? Hopefully a good cash budget with the right analysis is going to tell us how much money we need. How much money can we take out as the owner? If I want to take out $20,000 next year beyond my salary or whatever, will my cash budget, is there going to be enough cash to take that out? And we like new things, right? We like new pieces of equipment. We want to remodel the office. All those things come into play. Will we have the cash available to make a new purchase, hire a new employee? Same thing. So we're going to start out with my forecasting. And forecasting, what I really mean is you always start at the top, and we're going to try to forecast revenue or sales. And a bad sales forecast can be very detrimental to your business. Why? Because as you've learned probably in the last 2 weeks, you see how everything is a function of revenue or a function of sales. It's what's going to drive everything else. So that's why forecasting sales is a key component. And lots of businesses spend lots of money and lots of time in trying to figure out forecasting, trying to figure out what's going to happen with their revenue streams. They have whole departments. That's what they do. They have this sales budget and this sales forecast and this one from here and there. But ultimately, it's going to come down to a sales budget that you're going to attach some expenses to figure out how much cash you're really going to need to do it. We're going to use that forecast to create an actual sales budget. But like I said, I'm not going to spend a lot of time with us writing down a whole lot of numbers. A little bit. I would rather us talk through more the meaning of it. And then we're going to use the cash budget, because that's the idea. We create the cash budget, and we figure out then what caveats, how can we use the cash budget to figure out what we can and can't do for the future. Whether today we're going to look at the first 4 months, I believe, of the year. Ultimately, cash budgeting, you probably would be looking at a year, at least you would want to be budgeting 6 months ahead. It takes a while, walk into the bank's office when you need a loan, for payroll next week doesn't help your credibility. That's why the planning process becomes so important. Okay, what class materials you have? We'll try to take a break at about 2:30. This is your class. All questions are welcome. Okay, and I'll start with questions, comments, or concerns from last Tuesday. Did anybody go home and look at a cash budget, a cash flow statement? That's what it was. That's what she was supposed to do. Yes, you were.
I asked him this morning, what we're supposed to do.
See if your software will print you one. Yeah, see if your software will print you a cash flow statement. Because they're not sure. Because it's not something they've been doing automatically. That would save you a lot of time. And I know you don't always have the opportunity. I know QuickBooks will print you one. The problem is Diane doesn't feel like she has all of her stuff entered into the balance sheet, so it wouldn't be as relative as, really her revenue is coming from her profit and loss. Although she's probably small enough that she's able to expense most of the larger purchases. You're probably expensing them. Yeah. Nothing big. Right. Nothing like, you're not buying any additional land or equipment or anything like that.
Maybe one piece of equipment and a greenhouse, because we got
Oh.
some tractors, so there's like
Greenhouses are expensive.
major things we want to get.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, that's,
yeah, well, there you go. I mean, that's a big cash flow
yes, it is.
angle. And I know you all established a whole new line of lawnmowers, and that was an investment because that was an inventory investment, I'm going to assume. Go ahead. I know QuickBooks will. I'm positive that it will. I'm 99% positive theirs will. A cash flow statement that you could go pull a report, just like you can pull down a profit and loss or income statement in a balance sheet. You can pull. I'm relatively sure. It is a specific to their industry specific software, which has some value. It really does, if it works right. Does it work pretty good? Yeah. Do you have support? Okay, that's helpful. Yeah, it's not always perfect. I mean, sometimes there are glitches, for sure. So any questions about cash flow from last week? Now you understand sources of cash and uses of cash and the difference. Any ideas where all the money's going? Because your owner keeps asking you that, right? Ah, so now you think, well, see, because if you look at 2 points in time of your inventory, if there is an increase, that is a asset account, and it's an increase, so it's a use of cash, right? Absolutely, and in that exact amount. So that could be, and maybe, studying turns and evaluating by product line, there are going to be, I think that would be really fun. I'm silly like that, but I think that would be really fun to see where your profitability is coming from, not just from a margin standpoint, but from a turn, from an investment standpoint. If I've got this much dollars in this item, in this line, and I got this one in the other, and I'm turning this one 10 times, my margin, if there's a lot of difference in turn, my margin doesn't have to be the same. I may be making a lot more money off of the investment or the return on that investment as opposed to the other. I didn't look at your average turn. What do you think it is?
Problem is we think in terms of
What?
vehicle count.
Okay. Same thing. Okay, tell me, how do you do that?
Well, 4 would make you a rock star, according to some of my peers.
Okay, tell me what that means. You say vehicle count and 4. Explain to me.
Quite simply put, if you had 4 units in 1 year, you would sell all 4.
Okay, that's a 4 turn. I mean, assuming you're replacing the vehicles too, right?
Correct.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Hang on. Let's do that.
Might change things. We have so many other things we sell, parts and accessories.
Yeah.
service.
What is my turn here?
Okay.
You think?
Last year, maybe the year before that.
Turn on equity is really high here. Wow. Fixed asset turn. This is not reporting it, so I would have to convert it. So it has, I can do that, because it has 144 days inventory, so we got to convert that to get a turn ratio. Let me do that real quick. Yeah, so how many days, so, hang on, find my calculator here. That's what phones are good for these days, right? Okay. So I'm going to take 365 and divide it by my days inventory to get a turn. So I believe you when you say 4 would make you a rock star, because this is reporting that the average turn ratio is 2.53. And let me show you how I got that, so you will know. I'm taking days inventory divided by 365, or 365. Yeah, days inventory divided by 365. Well, no, that way. Okay? So that's how you get to the turn. Basically, this is already, part of the equation's already computated. Okay? So that's what it would mean, though. So 4 would make you a rock star. You're right. And a 2.5 turn, just in generalities, it's not extremely fast. That's pretty capital-intensive business is what that would tell me, you know, which is what you're saying, too.
Probably why 4 and utilized as much as it is.
So, yeah, if you could ever get to a 4 turn, that would be dramatic. Although, it's looking like the return on the investment is pretty good, which may have a couple remember return on investment, remember what that means. It's profitability divided by equity, and the equity may not be as high in some of these businesses as others too, so it's all reflective. Okay, we're going to start out by trying to predict the future. And predicting the future is most of the time, and since you all are experienced business owners and you have history, it's based on the past. Startups, a little tougher. You know, you don't know, you have no history. You can use some resources to try to help you, but generally, predicting the future is about looking at the past and trying to plan for your cash needs. So things like, how much did you sell? When did you receive the cash? Not just when you sold it, but when did you get it? What expenses were tied to those things? So you're going to look at basically what we're calling an income statement or profit and loss, right? How that worked and what the trends are in that. How is it trending? If you looked at how many years, Diana, how many years have you been in business?
Well, maybe 2 years, you know.
Full
But
years.
last year was like the first solid year. A year before that, well, this will be we're going into our 3rd year.
Okay.
Because, you know, we did go to the farmer's market, and we more than doubled what we made the year before.
Very good.
At the farmer's market.
Cool. That gives you, so you have that history.
Right, and then, you know, the
And what they tell us is to get a trend line, what do we need? We need 3 points.
Like in college, we did regression analysis. to
Yes,
do this.
we did.
That's what we had to do.
Same thing. This is regression analysis.
Is there something QuickBooks will do for you?
You can do it in Excel. I don't think QuickBooks will do regression. I don't know. I'm trying to remember. Oh, it's easy. Just go to the search function in Excel. It's just linear regression, single linear regression. Your unknown is you just have one unknown, and it's time. So this is what linear regression looks like. You have sales up here, and you have time down here. So like with Diana's business, year 1, was here if she plotted it, and then year 2 was here. So that's year 1, this is year 2. Now, year 3, we don't know where it's going to be, but we can't, 2 points is a little tough. They typically tell us they like to see at least 3 points to see a trend, because what we would do is it would enable us to plot the percent change, and how we were growing. And maybe, year 3 looked like this, and then year 4 looked like this. And then what all linear regression does is it predicts out here using really a linear line. I mean, that's why it's called that. So it's trying to plot it based upon what's happened. Very easy to do in Excel. There's a lot of little programs out there that will help you. If you can ever identify another, what we're going to call a driver or an influencer of sales, and you have some information that can help you, you can do multiple regression. Now they're having 2 unknowns, more than just time, but maybe weather is a huge indicator. And if you read the Farmer's Almanac for that year, and it's going to be a great year for berries, that might help you predict. The reality is how much, to try to plan and invest in, because you think that the weather is going to be good. Now, we all know that might not happen. Yeah. What did the Farmer's Almanac say for us? See, I don't know. I just know my parents used to get out the Farmer's Almanac,
Well, that was fun.
And you can still buy them. Yeah.
We had a lot of rain, but we had so much rain.
It's
we
too
didn't
much
get
rain.
enough sun, so we had berries the size of Jupiter, but they weren't sweet, and we couldn't sell them. I wouldn't sell them.
Oh, interesting.
So
Interesting.
with Farmer's Almanac,
Yeah.
with the rain,
If you can figure out another driver that you think influences your business, do you guys, and you think of any that you really feel like influences your sales? Weather? Weather, could be. I mean, this is what big companies try to figure out, partially. What's happening? What are the influences? What's driving this? The economy, in a lot of cases, is going to affect it. So just, what's going on with wages, consumer price indexing does matter. It's not changing a whole lot right now. I mean, our inflation rate is very, very low. They have not, well, they did once this year. They raised interest rates, and now they're holding back, because that does affect people, because when they raise those lending rates to the banks, that's the Federal Reserve basically changing the requirement of what banks have to have in deposit. And when they change that, it makes money more expensive. Therefore, they raise their interest rates to their best customers, and the top 20 New York banks is what they figure, what we call New York Prime or NY Prime. It's published daily in the Wall Street Journal. And all that is that is the average lending rate of the top 20 New York banks to their best customers. But it is used as an index for the whole United States. Same thing as the LIBOR rate on an international scale. And so that really influences. So every time they raise that deposit rate, it affects us. And that's what they haven't changed now for 2 months or 3 months. And they raised it. It went up 0.25% earlier or late in last year, in the fall. And, you know, that affects borrowing because it affects our mortgage rates too. You know, it affects all of our business rates. It may affect, did your floor plan rate go up when they did that? Do you remember?
Yes,
It might have. If it was indexed, if it's, you know, if you have a guarantee rate, it didn't, but if it isn't guaranteed, it'll affect you. I have a line of credit on my home, you know, it affected it because I forgot it was based upon New York Prime. You know, it's like, oh, I'm like, oh, how about that? There you go. Yeah, so it does affect us. So all those key indicators is what we're going to try to use to figure out what our sales look like for next year. Do you guys do sales planning?
We have goals that are established by the owners.
Yeah.
So yes.
Yes, you do. Yeah. I think it's valuable. I mean, I'll just say, because, you know, if you never have a plan, it's really hard to work towards something, right? If it's a reasonable plan, you know. It's not very much fun having an unreasonable plan that you know you're not going to hit too. So it has to be within reason. So some tools we use. We're going to use some tools today. We're going to look at the balance sheet. You know, we're going to look at previous years, absolutely. I mean, if you have history, and you guys have lots of history, right? Like how many years?
Technically, just one. So we can
What?
actually- Well, I mean, so we can actually get hands-on, pull it from the computer ourselves. The rest of it is backup. We'd have to call the company to see if that's something we can get. The system just doesn't go back on some of the things. Some of the, like the sales, unit sales, we can pull that years back, or like the profit and loss statement and stuff.
Oh.
Statements.
Good. Okay, good. Okay, so you have it. It's just you don't have it in an electronic format. Yeah, an annual basis. You might want at least, I mean, we're going to talk about some seasonality here real quickly. You know, you guys have seasonality. You have a lot of seasonality. And that affects your cash so much, which is really what we're going to talk about, and cash in and cash out, and kind of where you are. And I think seasonality is really important. So we can just do an annual budget. You know, we can just do an annual sales plan, but I would discourage doing that because that's not how we pay for things. That's not how cash influences us. You know, we pay for things monthly. We receive cash daily. We pull statements by month. So really, monthly is a very big indicator. And when I do this, when I help a company try to figure out their seasonability, I like to at least use 3 years. Again, because you can't officially trend anything without 3 points to look at really what's going on. You're getting close. This will be your 3rd year, right, at the farmer's market. So that will help you. So I would encourage you to go back and look at 3 years by month. And we're going to do that for Computer Solutions here real quick so I can show you what I'm talking about and how you would do it. Sometimes when we're doing cash planning, we even prepare pro forma statements. A bank typically might require a pro forma statement if you're asking for money. And then all that pro forma means is it's a financial statement. It looks like a real one, but it isn't. It's an educated guesstimate of what the statement would look like. And that is usually part of a full-blown business plan. Even an ongoing company will plan that far out to see what it might look like. But certainly, you want to do a cash. Cash is important. I mean, when it gets right down to it, it's the only thing that is really important because you have to have the cash to survive. So doing a cash budget is a key component. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do in doing this cash budgeting is we got to forecast sales for next year. Let's see, it's April, right? So if you haven't done, do you have monthly sales plans, weekly sales plans, I'm going to assume? Monthly? Okay, so you have this year's? Okay, good. You could probably help him. Pull those, especially if you have them by revenue stream. And kind of figuring out, I would plot them by if I have berries, I have eggs. If I have that separated, I would separate it in a sales plan too. Because it's going to give me a better idea of kind of what's going on with different revenue streams and where my earnings are increasing and maybe where they're declining to get the best sales plan that I can get. The second thing we're going to do, though, is estimate when we get paid in our sales. This is what I fear. My throat is kind of starting, yeah. Thank you. My throat is starting to tickle. Cold coffee even feels kind of good. Right. And so you extend terms, right? On some things, but not on everything, right?
Not a big piece of our business, but it is there.
Okay. What percent do you think? Okay. Good. Well, that helps your cash flow. When most people come in and pay, how do they pay? Credit card?
Well, we provide a lot of financing, the big dollars are going to be paid by lenders.
So you don't finance it though,
Correct, we do personal loan in-house.
right? But so you get paid immediately. Almost a few days. So there's a little delay. And then I assume people use credit cards.
Small purchases all the time.
Do you have any cash business? A little bit? Okay. The reason I'm asking you this is I'm going to show you kind of a little method that this particular, how I'm teaching this cash budget kind of uses all those different ways you get paid, of when you get paid. And you could easily do that. It may be a little more detailed than you want to get into, but I'm going to teach you how to do it if you want to. Okay. So you got to estimate when you get paid. And then when you pay, uses of cash. Again, we're going back to sources and uses. And then the last step really of doing a cash budget is considering other operational considerations or things that you might be planning to change next year. Like you're adding a new line of something. You're adding a new crop. How's that going to affect? Those type of things. Don't forget because I'm sorry, I'm probably coughing right in the microphone. Those things will also affect, obviously, your cash in and cash out. Okay, so forecasting sales. Beyond this, we're going to use historical trends, knowledge of anything that's going to change, and then we're going to break it into monthly increments. We're going to plan by month. Still a good plan, even if you don't do everything by month. We could just take our sales plan and divide it into 12. Not too smart, right? especially if you have seasonal, any kind of seasonal. Most businesses are going to have some seasonality. I mean, some. Some have a lot more than others. You're a great example. Branson, Missouri is a great example of seasonality. In the beginning, you know, things, man, after that October festival at Silver Dollar City, that place died. And then they came up with the Christmas, all the holiday stuff, and that extended their season a lot. That was a very valuable plan. Now, though, after that first week of December, things really don't start up until April in Branson. So all those businesses have January, February, and March as very down months on revenue. So their seasonality planning is very important, just as yours could be. And especially the motel owners, think about what that does to you. Because motel owners typically are going to have a large debt service. They're probably going to have a pretty large loan to a bank. And what banks usually do in a scenario like that is they're going to have, they may force an escrow account. And it's very common that they are going to require those owners to pay into that escrow account all year long so that they have enough money to pay their debt service during those down months. In other words, they're forcing what we're talking about today, really, that is cash planning, on how much cash they really need. Because it isn't easy, and it's a fact that we don't always do a great job at cash planning. So when there's a large debt, it is not uncommon for a bank to force this. And seasonality is big. Okay, so in looking back at what was going on, remember our computer solution guys, and remember, you know, what we knew about them. I know it's been a week, but what was going on with sales? Just exclusively looking at sales now. 4 years ago, they did $395,000, and then the last year they had done $628,000. Their sales were going up. And my rule of thumb is anything over 10% is painful. And what I mean by that is you feel it. Any sales increase on an annual basis over 10% that is not just a reflection of price increasing, because price increasing increases revenue too. You know, when you go through and you may have a model increase, and so you take your current inventory, I mean, we always did, and if I had that same model, I'm not going to sell that same model at a reduced price when my new stock I own at a higher price. So I'm going to raise the price on all of them. But I'm talking about a 10% sales increase that is beyond that you're really having an increase. So let's figure out what was going on with Computer Solutions now. So if we look at just income there, here's what was going on. Well, I'll just walk through this. You have this also in your handout, just so you'll know. So we want to figure out, you know, what has been the average trend of sales increases over the last 4 years. This is why those statements that you have, you know, might be very valuable. Especially now, at least the last 3 years, I would say, that we've come out of the economic crisis. I don't know how difficult it was in West Plains. I mean, the Midwest was a little bit insulated from some of that, but not totally, because I know it affected a lot of car sales, luxury items that people did not have to purchase because people lost jobs, lost homes. So while we were a little insulated, we still felt the impact of that. I remember it, and we didn't really feel it at the university until spring of '09, although it really started in '08. You know, in the fall, this was really big. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. But when people get scared, when there's bad economic news, you know, we're human and we do some interesting things. And a lot of things, what we do is we quit spending money. because we're not sure. We get concerned that, well, if someone, Joe down the street lost his job, I might lose my job. Even though there probably is no reason why I might lose my job, but Joe did, and I didn't think Joe was going to lose his job, so we do that. We hunker down, we nest, is what we call it. We stay home. We do things like that, and it greatly affected us in '09. And so that's why I'm saying the last maybe, 3 years probably are more reflective of all of that. Because I'm going to assume that people don't buy fun stuff.
Our company changed hands
Oh, when?
February 2020.
Wow. Do you think that recession affected it that much? That was one of the reasons?
I do. They had seen their best years from way back in the 90s. Things didn't look like it was getting better, but they did.
They did. But it was a very slow recovery. We know that now. It was the slowest recovery we've ever had, historically.
Good time to buy something.
Yeah.
Poor time to sell it, maybe.
Right. So it was a good time to buy something. It probably was a very poor time to sell, because when we sell a business, what a bank is usually going to require is last 3 years, and the last 3 years probably did not look great. 10, 9, and 8. Those would have been rough years. So it recovered, but maybe, there's only so much cash that you can generate in that time. And I think we all were we never had an economic crisis like this. It's the reality. And we were used to it bouncing back much quicker than it did. But it was so deeply rooted because it was the housing crisis. And that affects so many people because it's your home. So I suspect, because people did not quit immediately. It took a while for it to get bad. But people stopped coming to training seminars even. I can tell you that. In Springfield, Missouri, which pretty insulated from all